Shadows of Valak in the Forgotten Cemetery. The Forgotten Cemetery lay hidden at the edge of the old forest, shrouded in mist and mystery. Locals refused to venture near, sharing tales of shadowy figures and eerie whispers that echoed through the gravestones. Most chilling of all were the accounts of a sinister entity, Valak, the demon nun, haunting the burial ground. Rebecca, an amateur paranormal investigator, had always dismissed such stories as folklore. Driven by a mix of skepticism and thrill-seeking, she decided to explore the cemetery under the light of a full moon. Armed with a flashlight, a camera, and her journal, she stepped through the rusted gates, the creak of metal breaking the deafening silence. The cemetery was a labyrinth of crumbling tombstones and weathered statues. Rebecca's breath fogged in the cold night air as she snapped photos, the flash illuminating brief glimpses of the eerie surroundings. A low wind began to stir, carrying faint whispers that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere. "Who's there?" Rebecca called out, her voice trembling. No response came, only the rustling of leaves and the ever-present whispers. Her flashlight flickered and the air grew colder. Suddenly, her camera captured a blur of motion, an indistinct shadow darting between the graves. Rebecca's heart pounded as she followed the shadow, drawn by a mix of curiosity and dread. She arrived at a large mausoleum at the cemetery's center. Its iron doors stood ajar, revealing a yawning darkness within. As she stepped closer, a deep, guttural laugh echoed from inside. "Valak," Rebecca whispered, the name chilling her to the core. From the shadows emerged a figure cloaked in black. The pale, malevolent face of Valak became visible, its glowing yellow eyes locking onto Rebecca. The entity's presence was suffocating, its aura thick with malice. "You dare disturb my domain?" Valak's voice was a hiss, sharp and venomous. Rebecca stumbled back, clutching her rosary. I didn't mean to." "Silence," Valak commanded, and the ground beneath Rebecca quaked. Shadows began to rise from the earth, taking the form of twisted, wailing spirits. They surrounded her, their icy hands clawing at her as she struggled to recite a prayer. The rosary in her hand began to glow faintly, the only source of light in the growing darkness. Summoning her courage, Rebecca shouted, "Leave me, demon! You have no power over the light." Valak let out an ear-splitting shriek, the shadows retreating momentarily. But the demon's laugh soon followed. "Foolish mortal! Light cannot banish what thrives in the dark." The spirits lunged again, and Rebecca screamed, her voice joining their haunting cries. In a desperate act, she threw the glowing rosary at Valak. The impact created a burst of light, forcing the demon and its shadows to retreat into the mausoleum. Rebecca collapsed to the ground, the cemetery eerily silent once more. When she opened her eyes, dawn was breaking, and the oppressive atmosphere had lifted. Though she survived, Rebecca was forever changed. She left the town, never speaking of the cemetery again. But on certain moonlit nights, locals swore they saw shadows moving among the graves, and a faint, mocking laugh carried on the wind, a reminder that Valak still lingered, waiting.